2017's The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild, Nintendo boldly rewrote the rules governing the design of one of the most renowned and beloved video game franchises of all time. By tossing out rigid, formulaic elements that had become deeply entrenched in Zelda games over a period of decades, the designers created a wonderful new vision for the series, one that emphasized exploration, experimentation, and player freedom. However, as bold and innovative as Breath of the Wild was in so many ways, there was one aspect of it that felt like a disappointing relic of the past. At one point, Link's quest takes him to Gerudo Town, a desert city which men are forbidden to enter. Denied access, his quest seems to be at a standstill. What's a hero to do? Link picks up on rumors of a man sneaking in and out of the town, though as he follows the lead, he starts hearing not of a man, or Vo as the Gerudo people say, but of a woman, or Vi. Link heads to the rooftop where the woman is rumored to spend time in the afternoons, and that's where he encounters Villia, the person all these rumors have been about. Villia is indeed dressed in traditional female Gerudo garb, and when asked about the rumors of a man sneaking in and out of the town, Villia professes ignorance, so we can infer that Villia identifies as female. But, and here's the problem, the game doesn't actually respect Villia's gender identity. In fact, it plays that identity for laughs. See, in order to get the help you need from Villia to sneak into Gerudo Town yourself, you have to choose interaction options that make Villia feel as if you both find her attractive and have no clue that she's trans. But the alternate options at every step of the way suggest that Link is just playing along, stroking Villia's ego to get what he wants, and that both Link and the player are in on the joke that Villia can't actually successfully pass as a cisgender woman. The joke is driven home after Link purchases some traditional Gerudo clothes for himself when a sudden gust of wind blows Villia's veil aside to reveal some facial hair. Hilarious. To be fair, Breath of the Wild's emphasis on player freedom means that the game allows you, as Link, to purchase and wear a decent assortment of feminine-coded clothing and jewelry throughout the game. And this freedom is definitely welcome. Some trans players in particular have created fan art celebrating Link in Gerudo attire, and some fans play the game with a personal interpretation, or headcanon, that Link is actually trans. But while it can be empowering and validating for us as marginalized people to bring our own personal interpretations to our experience of a work, it's still important to note that what the game itself gives us, and what most players will experience, is a cruel and unnecessary mockery of trans identities. In this regard, for all of its fresh and exhilarating design choices, Breath of the Wild feels positively ancient, part of a long tradition of video games perpetuating homophobia and transphobia. How long a tradition are we talking? Well, in 1985, a public domain text adventure called Mad Party Fucker was released for the Commodore 64. In that game, you play someone attending a party whose goal, as the instructions screen states, is, quote, to fuck as many women as you can without getting boo-fooed by fags, parentheses, contracting AIDS, end quote. That's a pretty clear example of mocking and demonizing gay men by presenting them as deadly predators. Now, maybe you think it's not really fair to consider a text adventure game made by a couple of guys in Cleveland that very few people have ever heard of or played when looking at the history of homophobia and transphobia in games. But Mad Party Fucker is far from the only game with explicit homophobic or transphobic elements in which the straight male protagonist's goal is to have sex with women. Let's go back to the glory days of early graphic adventure games, a genre that Sierra Online innovated and then dominated for a long time. Following the breakout success of games like the original King's Quest, Sierra decided to take a 1981 text adventure game that they had published called, I kid you not, Soft Porn Adventure, and adapt it into a graphic adventure game. Thus, in 1987, the world was introduced to Leisure Suit Larry, a hapless schlub who starred in a whole series of games chronicling his routinely comical efforts to pick up women. The world of the Leisure Suit Larry games was deliberately, inescapably sleazy from the very first game on. but the series' aggressive homophobia and transphobia may have peaked with the sixth game, released in 1993. Well, actually, technically, it's the fifth game in the series, but it's called Leisure Suit Larry 6. Anyway, the point is, Larry finds himself on an all-expenses-paid trip to a luxurious spa where he continues his tireless efforts to sleep with women. And if there's one thing that can ruin a straight man's pursuit of women, we all know that it's interacting with a gay man. At the spa, Larry meets a character named, again, I kid you not, Gary Ferry, a flamboyant gay man who works as a towel attendant. Gary's aggressive sexual advances are presented as both humorous and threatening. And if you show sexual interest in Gary, it's an instant game over, as the narrator comments that Larry's career as a swinging single has come to an ignominious end.
Oh, sweetie, I thought you'd never ask.
Oh no, what have I done?
So there's our requisite homophobia, but don't worry, this game has it out for trans women too. One of the women Larry meets at the resort is named Chablis, a makeup artist who asks Larry to meet her for a midnight swim. As they're about to have sex, it is suddenly revealed, via what's supposed to be a visual gag, that Chablis is a trans woman. A revelation that causes Larry to throw up in horror and disgust, while the narrator Riley comments,
"No wonder Chablis knows what a man likes."
The screen then goes black, and the sound effects suggest that Chablis rapes Larry, a situation the game plays for laughs as we then cut to Larry gurgling mouthwash the next morning. This joke crassly makes light of the serious and very real trauma experienced by male survivors of rape and sexual assault. Meanwhile, the entire Chablis storyline, culminating in the beach encounter, is one big statement about how trans women are disgusting and deceitful. The fact that Chablis is a black woman makes it significantly worse. For starters, the game traffics in racist stereotypes. If you look at Chablis' hair, you're told that it looks wild, untamed, tribal, all words that would be right at home in a racist 1930s adventure story about white people coming into contact with the exotic natives of Africa. And it reinforces transphobic rhetoric that racists regularly employ against cisgender black women. Certain right-wing political cartoonists, for instance, often use transphobic imagery in depictions of Michelle Obama, simultaneously implying that neither trans women nor cisgender black women are real women. This combination of racism and transphobia, which Leisure Suit Larry 6 perpetuates in the character of Chablis, is called transmisogynoir. That is, the particularly dangerous hatred and oppression that black trans women experience as a result of existing at the intersection of misogyny, transphobia, and anti-blackness. Not only do black trans women face particularly high rates of poverty and homelessness as a result of housing and employment discrimination, they are also at a staggeringly high risk of being assaulted or killed. When games use fictional black trans women as the butt of vile transphobic jokes like this, they're contributing to the very same cultural perceptions that make life so difficult for so many actual black trans women. Unfortunately, harmful depictions of trans women in games didn't fade away with the 1990s. No, the staggeringly popular Grand Theft Auto games have ensured that millions of players continue to spend hundreds of hours in a universe where trans women and gay men are usually nothing but dehumanized objects of ridicule. The franchise's hatred for these groups is communicated through radio ads, billboards, business names, and NPC interactions throughout the series that are far too numerous to list, so we'll just hit a few of the highlights. In GTA San Andreas, players must complete a mission on behalf of a character named OG Loke, who recruits the protagonist CJ to help him hunt down and kill a man named Freddy. It's strongly implied that Loke's motive for wanting Freddy killed is that the two of them had a consensual sexual relationship in prison. Yes, Freddy needs to be eradicated for no reason other than that he is gay.
Yeah, you know Jeffrey's been somebody's bitch for the past 3 weeks, right? I know. Man, I gotta kill some chola motherfucker. He was dissing me, man.
Jeffrey, you got the wrong idea, man. That was just a prison thing. You dropped the soap, sugar. I thought you were king, coupon. Get him, boy.
You need to... Yo, I'm gonna kill that loud motherfucker. Don't you say a damn thing, CJ. Was you lonely, low? Hey, I like a nice mustache myself.
The game's hatred of queer people also manifests in the fact that the police in San Fierro, the game's fictionalized version of San Francisco, speak in statements filled with double entendres, or sometimes single entendres, suggesting that they are going to sexually molest CJ, the game's protagonist.
After I kick your ass, I'm gonna fuck it. First I'm gonna beat you up, then I'm gonna beat you off.
With GTA 4 in 2008, it seems that Rockstar wanted to have its cake and eat it too, appearing as if they understood that hating people just for being gay was no longer cool or acceptable, but without actually giving up their mockery of queer people. In a mission called Hating the Haters, protagonist Nico's flamboyant gay associate Bernie is assaulted by a homophobic attacker for being gay, and players must then pursue and take down the hater. So this time, you're killing someone for hating gay people instead of killing someone for being gay. However, Bernie is still presented as an absurd stereotype who players are obviously intended to laugh at. Yay, progress. Things certainly didn't get any better when Rockstar released GTA 5 in 2013. In one area of the city, players can encounter a group of transgender sex workers who clearly are meant to be ridiculous and disgusting to the presumed straight male player. And as with just about any character in the game, players have the freedom to assault or even murder these people. And you may argue that, well, since the game gives you the freedom to do this to anyone, there's no problem. These characters aren't being singled out in any way. And we can take that line of thinking a step further and say, hey, the GTA games are cultural satire. They mock everyone. They mock conservatives and corporations and lampoon pretty much every aspect of our society. But that defense doesn't actually hold up, and the reason why has to do with the power dynamics in our society. Let me explain by taking our protagonists. The games I've discussed may sometimes poke a little fun at these men. Larry Laffer, in particular, is a figure of ridicule, and GTA 5 sometimes offers up some mild laughs at the expense of Trevor and Michael. But even if we laugh at these men, they're still centered in the story. It's them we identify with and relate to when we take on the role of the protagonists of these games. Also, as white men, Larry, Trevor, and Michael are not members of a disadvantaged, marginalized group. So mocking them doesn't reinforce harmful, limiting stereotypes about white men. It certainly doesn't foster widespread hatred of white men as a group, and it doesn't contribute to existing social prejudices or disadvantages that white men as a group have to face. Even its depiction of Franklin is a fairly three-dimensional one, not one that simply perpetuates racist stereotypes. However, there's no dimension or depth whatsoever to these trans women. They're literally just NPCs on the street who spout some dialogue that's intended to make their struggles to be seen and accepted as women seem ridiculous. And as we mentioned previously, trans women, particularly trans women of color, are already an extremely marginalized group, at tremendous risk for homelessness, unemployment, a lack of health care, and being the targets of violence. So mocking them does reinforce harmful, limiting stereotypes. It does foster widespread hatred of trans women. It does contribute to existing social prejudices and disadvantages that trans women as a group have to face. People sometimes mischaracterize these issues as being all about getting offended and respond with comments like, if you find it offensive, don't play it. Or they may make wisecracks about how the people who point out these issues are just delicate little snowflakes who get easily triggered. So let's be clear. These issues really have nothing to do with individual people being offended. They have to do with media that helps maintain harmful cultural biases and systems of oppression. It doesn't make any difference if I individually play Grand Theft Auto 5 or not. Sure, I can choose not to play it and not to encounter the harmful stereotypes that exist in it, but the game still exists whether I play it or not. Hundreds of thousands of other people are playing it, and the game is telling them that mocking and hating queer and trans people is normal and totally acceptable. When a work of comedy, whether it's a stand-up routine or an episode of South Park or a Grand Theft Auto game or you name it, mocks these already marginalized populations, that comedy is punching down. That is to say, it's reinforcing biases in our society that already make life considerably more difficult and dangerous for certain populations. Of course, comedy also has the power to punch up, to challenge corrupt, powerful institutions, or to push back against racism, misogyny, homophobia, transphobia, or other systemic issues. But when games like Leisure Suit Larry or GTA mock gay or trans people for being gay or trans, they validate the prejudices of all the players who come to those games already hating gay or trans people. In GTA 5, transphobes can even relish the opportunity to live out their hate crime fantasy of murdering these NPCs for being trans. So it remains extremely important that games give us portrayals of queer and trans people that challenge the notions perpetuated by all of these games. Such portrayals remain few and far between, but we may be starting to see them with slightly more frequency. In The Division, scientist Jessica Candle makes an offhand comment about her ex-wife.
Now I can focus on research. My wife always says I'm better with pathogens than with people. My ex-wife. Funny.
Assassin's Creed Syndicate features Ned Weinert, a trans man living in Victorian London.
Beautiful train you got here. Miss McBean was just telling me all about her. Name's Ned.
How do you do?
I won't take up more of your time. If you want to learn a thing or two about the finest transit systems in the world, you can find me at this address.
And in The Last of Us, the character of Bill, who is nobody's idea of a gay male stereotype, is revealed to have had a relationship with another man.
Jesus. What, do you know this guy or something?
Frank.
Who the hell's Frank?
He was my partner. He's the only idiot that would wear a shirt like that.
True, these are all small supporting characters, but it's a start. You know how Disney has never released Song of the South on video in the West? Because they recognize that it's just so embarrassingly, harmfully, cringe-inducingly racist? If games keep giving us characters like these, human characters we're supposed to empathize with, who aren't needlessly ridiculed or vilified by the games in which they exist, soon the worlds of all those other games that do hate their queer characters will seem just as outdated, relics of a shameful past that may be better off locked in the vault.